Hold the Line with Mike Solan is brought to you by the Seattle Police Officers Guild, Seattle's public safety voice.
Hey, welcome back to Hold the Line with Mike Solan. Today in studio, I've got Portland Police Association President Aaron Schmautz, who is in the thick of it right now, dealing with ANTIFA, a lot of the media spotlight. He was just in D.C. last week, and Trump's executive order highlighting ANTIFA as a domestic terrorist organization. And we're going to unpack all the relevant events surrounding his city, his membership, and obviously in comparison to what we're dealing with here in Seattle. Stick around.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther. This is where we hold them. This is where we fight.
We will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish. Not a fight. Hold the line!
Aaron, man, you're in one.
Yeah.
You are in one, man. Thanks for agreeing to come up here.
Of course.
You know, you guys seem to have the Antifa varsity squad when it comes to the comparison of the cities. Seattle sometimes plays when the JV starts to rear its ugly head. And we seem to be changing stories back and forth that become national, international news, but mostly because of what's going on with ICE. How many months now has that drama been going on?
I mean, I think, really May, June it's been since then. There's been like an active kind of ongoing event. These occupation style protests, go all the way back to 2010 with Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah.
Portland has had a willingness from our activist community to just continue to show up night after night. Obviously, the biggest example being in 2020 with 180 days straight of just absolute riots every single night. And the other side of it too is there's always this kind of difficult navigating what people are seeing, because every single day we'll see protests that really require no police response at all. In Portland, just like Seattle's a city that has a deep history of protests that are nonviolent. And again, people always say like mostly peaceful. That's not a thing. Like the ones that are violent, and the ones that are peaceful. And you shouldn't compare the two. Frankly, if I were someone who wants to engage in a protest and sees people being violent, they're taking your cause. You shouldn't support it.
Yeah, there's a clear delineation between both those types of mindsets.
Yeah.
One's an act of crime.
Yeah.
The other is just engaging in your First Amendment right.
Yeah, and the people who wish to engage in violence, they engage, they're effectively parasites. They show up on, situations or movements that have, local legitimacy. People care about something, but they show up. They're very open about Rose City Antifa has a website. It's like they're openly advertising what they do. They talk about the fact that they wish to engage in direct action events. Direct action is overt violence. It's specific, pointed attacks. That when people were burning our union hall, it was a direct action event. And so when people tell you who they are, you got to believe them. And, I've said a lot recently, like if you want to engage in a protest, we've had, 50, 100,000 people protest that go
with no drama.
No drama. I mean, it takes like 20 cops. You block some streets. We don't do anything. And again, people can debate the merits of all these different things and all these different arguments, but protest it's legal in America. It's part of the fabric of our community. But violence is not. And I get calls every single day from business owners. What's really happening? Are we really going to do this again? Insurance in downtown Portland is incredibly expensive. We have 50% vacancies in our office buildings. Our economy is crumbling. And there's a lot of hope. Like people want to rebuild our city. There's a lot of good things about Portland, but this stuff is hugely damaging to the fabric of our city. And so it's just very, very frustrating.
Well, thanks for that. But let's just back up a minute. So you and I started talking around 2020-ish, 2021, right? We were part of a national group called United Coalition of Public Safety. You can find us at United Cops. And you took over in a tumultuous time, right? You just mentioned that your union hall was firebombed. I even think it was flooded, right?
Well, the water actually, there was some flooding. They
deliberately did that.
Yeah, and there was also a guy next door. There's actually a pretty famous picture. It got lit on fire, and it was adjacent to a homeowner's home, and it lit his tree on fire. So he was standing there with a garden hose trying to put it out. So some of the flooding was from
a guy trying to prevent it. But you were inside the building when they firebombed you guys. They boarded up the the doors. That's just bizarre, dude.
Yep. Also a precinct, 2 different precincts, they would board the doors to a precinct.
Yeah. So they had the same direct action violence here in the city. I mean, this place got firebombed. Multiple protests / arson attempts, right? Feds got involved with some good investigations. But that type of action, and we lost the East Precinct to the Chaz Chop drama of 2020, where they tried to cement the doors shut. Craziness.
Yeah.
So we have some compared stories, but how many people has the PPB, Portland Police Bureau? Cool name, by the way.
Yeah.
How many people have you guys, your membership in terms of the association, the union for the Bureau, how many people have you guys lost since like 2020?
So immediately in 2021, we lost about 160. A city our size, we should probably have around 1,400 police officers. We got as low as like mid 600s. We're back up to right around 800 now. And so there has been some recovery. But as you know, when you have public safety hiring, when you lose a bunch of people, it takes a long time to recover because you have natural attrition built into. So we're kind of back to where we were at the time. When I got hired 21 years ago, we had 1,000. And so we're still 200 under where we were, and the city's obviously grown since then.
Okay. Yeah. Kind of similar. We should be around 1,600, but we've been for a long time, 1,400, but we've lost in a decade about 700 cops, most of that post 2020.
Yeah.
So we're just like you, we're adding people, but it's not to the level that we should be.
Right.
And we're struggling to even find competent cops or I shouldn't say competent. A lot of the cops here are competent, if not all. But people that want to, do they want to be field training officers to absorb the amount of students that are coming through the pipeline, right? It's kind of a tough situation we all find ourselves in. So then we're understaffed, stressed out, and then you add the drama of the politics in terms of infusing itself into public safety. And like I said earlier, you're in one, man. You guys are ground zero right now. So thanks for taking the time to come up here, buddy. A lot of the feedback is negative against you guys. Maybe the association, a lot of targeted at you because like, hey, dude, what are you doing about it?
Right.
So not only do you have to represent the cops, defend them publicly, but then you're defending yourself due to all the hits saying you guys are aligned with Antifa. And so, Andy who's a prominent journalist in Portland area, lived there many years. You wrote an article on your current police chief. This was on October 3rd of 2025. Basically, the Portland police chief will apologize to Antifa. At least that's the comparisons being made in terms of your current chief, who came out of retirement as a courtesy, I would say, to maybe your elected leaders in Portland, say, hey, our previous guy demoted himself, which is kind of bizarre.
Yep.
That's drama. And then you've got a police chief who basically talking, at least publicly, that a lot of this drama surrounds just one city block.
Yep.
And that's the ICE facility, right?
Yep.
So can you describe, number one, your relationship with the police chief, why he's taking the tone in which he's doing, is it appears to be, to some people, having excuses as to why the Bureau appears to be on the sides of domestic terrorists / Antifa.
Yeah. It's always interesting trying to work through why people do the things they do. This chief, from our association or our membership's perspective, did come at a time where, we were just really in the middle of it, like you said, like a thing, right? We're just post 2020. He has been really good on a lot of things. He, has helped us navigate through a lot of historical discipline cases. He's very communicative with our union, which, we haven't always had that relationship with police chiefs in Portland. Management and labor don't always see eye to eye. I've told the chief directly, the one city block message, there's kind of two prongs of it. I don't like the messaging from the standpoint that I think it's kind of like reductive to the people who live there. We should never give up any blocks of our city, right? You and again, I've spoken with a lot of people who are really, we have businesses down there, people down there. And what's also odd in this argument is the actual facility of which we're talking about. A lot of people, even in the immigrant, support community, the facility needs to be open. Like they need to be able to go to their appointments. It can actually lead to big problems. And so, I don't agree with the one block message. I do think the other part of that argument, though, is Portland police officers are policing the whole city every day. And every day that this is going on, we have like 100 calls for service holding. And so this idea that the Portland Police Bureau has completely abandoned the city or isn't out actively doing police work every day, it's just, I feel like the conversation, no matter what you say, sounds like an excuse. And, as it relates to our response to protests, a lot of that has been dictated by our DOJ agreement, by changes in state law, by effectively what the community asks us to do in relation to protest. And so it's really difficult to isolate a conversation and have a productive conversation at a moment where emotions are very high.
Okay. Well, this is, bear with the audience here. It's about a minute clip of the chief that we're talking about in terms of his stance on this one block. And you hear for yourselves whether or not you agree with the chief who came out of retirement to try to lead the Bureau through these times.
Is there a myth or a misconception since this news broke that you're like, oh, I just wish people understood this?
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, and it's been highlighted so many times so well, but I just want to emphasize, this is one city block. City of Portland is about 145 square miles. This is one city block. And even the events that are happening down there do not rise to the level of attention that they are receiving. We are seeing this true for our society in whole. I'm not going to try and editorialize too much, but these, 30-second, 20-second, 15-second clips that are brought in from months ago or maybe even years ago. We've seen Portland portrayed through the events of the lens of 20 and 21. And what's actually happening in the response that we're seeing both from Portlanders and from the Portland Police Bureau is not in line with that national narrative. And it is frustrating, but we're going to continue to stay the course. I said this on Saturday. The actions of the federal government and others doesn't change the resolve that the Portland Police Bureau has to continue to provide the highest level of safety and security and service to Portlanders.
So, there you are.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably trying to describe Andy No's coverage for years. Who's, as you know, Andy just got assaulted. I don't know how many times, brain injuries.
Yep.
And so he's been a constant thorn in Antifa's side. But he's basically highlighting in this piece, we'll link to in the description, is basically like the Portland Police Bureau, this city of Portland. You've had 5 police chiefs in almost a little over a decade, right? It's similar to here in Seattle. We've had 7.
Right.
A lot of that is captured around how many years we've been under Department of Justice settlement agreement, consent decree with DOJ civil rights violations, right? So I think the two are hand in hand. And then you got to unpack hey, why is it normal for that to happen?
Right.
So given what he just talked about compared to what you just said, do you see this guy sticking around after this, or is he going to be gone?
Well, someone told me the other day, quit trying to be nuanced in a situation where nuance isn't applicable.
Actually, a pretty good quote.
Yeah. Because I think the truth matters. The police chief is actually very popular in Portland. He's popular politically. The community supports him. The business community supports him. And so, I don't think, if he chooses to go because he doesn't want to do the job anymore, he's already retired once, so that's his prerogative. What's so weird about this moment is historically the police are under fire, from the locality. You go to 2020, we had city commissioners accusing us of starting the fires as agent provocateurs. You had city officials going out and standing in tear gas. Just like it was, it was an anti-police movement in 2020. This is a very peculiar political moment, again, where nuance is necessary. No matter who the chief is, again, if you move this chief, who the next chief is, you and I both know that police chiefs come and go. Our men and women are the ones that have to actually do the work.
Absolutely.
And so, my dad was in the chief's office for the last 10 years of his career, and I met all of the 7 chiefs that he worked for there. It's just, this chief is, in my opinion, he's in the work. He's trying to navigate a very difficult political situation. And again, he has not been a negative for our membership. And I always want to be honest and truthful about the way people navigate. I don't agree with everything he said. I don't agree with some of the messaging. I certainly don't agree with some of the messaging from the city. But I don't understand the inability to have nuanced conversations, and it's very difficult. Again, the clip you just played, there's stuff in it that I agree with. We're a big city. We're trying to police the whole city. I also don't agree that we should ever abandon an area. So that's nuance.
So that's nuance is great. I like how you're trying to differentiate that, and it's good. You're playing the political game for your people, which is your job as a president, to try to get a contract, not completely go full scorched earth against the chief's office, therefore going against the mayor. It's a difficult task to behold. Having said that, the nuanced conversations which highlight context for the constituents, which is the community, and then I think the people in the profession, not only just locally, your membership, but also nationally. How do you get your message out there to at least tell your membership that, listen, this is the arena that the union has to navigate to try to get you a contract, which gets you paid. Try to limit how much activist influence into the contract to keep your profession somewhat worthwhile. Being an employee of the PPB. How do you get that message out to your people?
Well, to my members, I speak to them directly, right? And I think what's so hard about our job, the pathway to where we're at, I think, is pretty linear. I mean, you've been in Seattle the same amount of time or longer that I've been in Portland. There has been attacks on law enforcement, on our profession, on the members, on the, the families. I mean, it has been so personal for so long that I do feel like in a role like you have and like I have, you've got to just make sure your people are okay. The frog in the boiling pot reality of just, sometimes people ask me all the time, like, are you just giving too much? Or are you not fighting out loud? It's like, you got to kind of pick your battles. And also the Portland community is who we serve, and they elect the people that we work with. And so I can sit there and complain about the elected officials. Some of the ones that we have in Portland, I just don't think will ever be supportive of law enforcement. I mean, in fact, they are really, really antagonistic and kind of awful towards law enforcement. Some of the things that have been said and I've come out publicly and discussed about, I mean, we've had, deadly force incidents where officers were defending the community, and you have people saying that our officers are hunting Portland citizens. That kind of hyperbole is not only untrue, but it's awful. And so, when there are opportunities to have those conversations, we have them. This current problem, the real challenge is, the federal government absolutely has a legal right to do law enforcement, to engage in their constitutional law enforcement activities. And their men and women who are willing to do the work go on the same wall as our members if they're killed in the line of duty. We're all in this together from that perspective. It's also, kind of an outside body doing police work in a contained, area that has different perspectives. And so, again, the nuance is really difficult. How do we identify, we work with the Portland community a lot. They have expectations about how law enforcement is going to show up, good, bad, or indifferent, born out of, again, law changes in Oregon, law changes in Portland, code changes, contractual changes, the DOJ. And so it's just a lot to figure out how both to keep our members stable, tell the truth about the work they're doing and why they're doing it, and also navigate a very complicated political environment.
Yeah, sure. And I appreciate that. We're very similar in terms of the pressures we're under, right? And I think both cities share the same political sentiment.
Yeah.
I think yours is a little bit more activist driven down there in terms of a louder populace, maybe more of an influence of activists who are rabidly anti-police.
Yeah. And I also think, the Occupy style is unique to Portland, at least in the duration. Even you look at 2020, ours lasted far longer than anyone's as far as, we didn't have a break for 180 days. It was only because we had a wildfire, literally, like the whole area was just cloaked in smoke and no one could breathe. And so people stopped. But what's interesting is, our community, like we've done polling recently, people want more police. They want access to law enforcement. They want to be able to be served by law enforcement, particularly by Portland police. But again, this political moment creates kind of this weird binary where people are like, you're making me choose. And, there is this loud, again, we're in a city that's very Democrat led. And so they have perspectives about, the federal government. And so it is just, again, it's peculiar, but these occupation style protests are so debilitating because, again, every single day the police bureau has to choose. Do we take, the fact that we're 10 under on every single shift,
10 officers under what a normal response would be.
Yeah. We're literally 8 to 10 officers on every single shift under minimums. You're going out and taking all these calls. You're already strained. How many, and again, out of 2020, in order for us to respond to a protest, you need a mobile field force, at least one, which is 12 people. You need field arrest teams, which are 12 to 24 people. Again, your detectives are getting pulled off investigations. And so the city is having to make very cynical decisions about its enforcement.
And you're triaging.
Yeah. And so, the suggestion that we're just abandoning an area versus you have to police a whole city and people from all over the city are demanding help. And again, it's the people, the citizens of Portland are asking you to do different things. It's just really difficult.
Yeah, and I think the majority of the citizens, correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of the citizens in Portland, based upon what you're saying, actually support public safety, support the police.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing here in Seattle.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. It's like at a 70% clip.
Yeah. So people just want a cop when they call. And so you're below 8 to 10 every shift, every day, every watch, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing here in Seattle.
Yeah.
So we're triaging, but people know that you can't just, in Seattle, you can't just go to a call by yourself.
No.
You have to have a backup, or if you don't, you're violating policy.
Yeah.
And so I think that plays into maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the perception of the lack of care or enforcement on your side as you're being painted in alliance with Antifa, or I would say submissive to Antifa, or if not, in support of.
Yeah.
You've been maligned that way.
Yeah.
And that's a grotesque, I think, capture of the narrative against just the cops in general who are pulled our oath of service to uphold the Constitution.
Right. Yeah. And again, there's two things that are awful. A, our officers every single day, all the time, are out serving the community. They're taking risks. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now, we had 2 officers, nearly killed in a shootout with a guy who was driving around town pointing a gun at people. A week later, we had officers nearly beaten to death by a guy who was just very large, very motivated guy who came out and was trying to disarm an officer. They're out there doing the work every day and very courageously. And, this situation at ICE, there is a law enforcement nexus, but there's also a huge political problem. And police aren't very good at politics. We really, I think constitutionally should be pretty agnostic politically, because whoever calls the police for help should get it.
In our official capacity as a bureau officer or
you put that,
Seattle Police Department employee, right?
Yeah, you put that uniform on. Whoever calls, I don't care who you are, if you call for help, our job constitutionally is go and uphold the laws and the rules that we've all agreed to, and uphold that Constitution and take risks on behalf of our community. The Antifa piece, the suggestion that our members are somehow supportive or sycophantic. We're in this weird moment now too, where all of a sudden all the politicians are starting to say Antifa isn't real again. Again, they have hats, they have shirts, they tell you who they are. And if people tell you who they are, you ought to believe them, right? And so
what do you think those politicians are saying, that they don't really exist?
Well, because again, we're in this moment, right? Where again, people, I thought we had gotten past it, but I think people, you have one side saying that, the city's a war zone, which it's just not, right? 2020 it just full send was, but it's not now. It's not that we don't have issues. There was a reporter out of Seattle that did a story that I thought was really good, kind of showing that really the larger suffering in Portland is our drug epidemic, people suffering on the streets, all the things, right? There's a real problem in Portland that is a humanitarian crisis that, again, law enforcement nexus, but
fentanyl based.
Yeah, all the things. But again, like me personally, I got doxxed in 2010 by Antifa, and people claiming Antifa affiliation called and threatened to rape and kill my wife and daughter. Okay, so it's kind of personal for me that people would suggest that we would support those people. They burned our buildings, they attacked our people, they continue to show up every day and engage in violence, and frankly, our community's tired of it. The challenge again is their parasitic nature of showing up to legitimate protest, right, where people want to protest a thing, and inserting themselves and then occupying it creates political tension around, people want to focus on the protest and not the bad actors who
Sure.
are co-opting their event.
Yeah, I think what you're describing will unpack a lot of the stuff that's in that 1 block radius
Yeah.
of the ICE facility
Yeah.
down there, which has led to all this recent dust up with journalists who've been assaulted. Is unions and associations, we have the unique ability to kind of correct the record, if you will, to stand up for our people that we represent.
Yeah.
The difference is nuanced,
Right.
using a word, and I think it's an appropriate word, depending upon the politics and your relations with your political figures in whatever city you're in. For us, we have the beauty of the protection of a labor law, which forces our city politicians to bargain working conditions and contracts with us. That gives us the unique ability to say, okay, well, we've made the decision as this union to be a little bit more vocal in terms of having a presence on X, which we think is an appropriate platform to push back or at least correct the narrative of a lot of the activist-led misinformation
Right.
on the policing in general as a whole, and then localized, obviously, with the city of Seattle. So one of the reasons why we started this podcast, too, is to subvert's too strong, correct the corporate media narrative, which more often than not, when it comes to major use of force, body cam footage is not the correct story.
Right.
And so it's our job is to fill that lane. Do you feel as if the Portland Police Association, in pushing back against the accusations of you guys, meaning cops in the city of Portland being aligned with Antifa, you guys doing an adequate job of correcting the narrative with whatever platform you guys have developed in your PR efforts?
Yeah. We do what we think we should, and then you never know, and you get weighed and measured in the future based on what the outcome is, right? We have suffered through, I think, a handful of circumstances that are just so existential that it's hard to know going into it what you're going to need to do. Because again, strategically, you approach an event using tactics that have worked, and then things become much larger. The thing that I have found difficult in the last couple of weeks is no matter what I do or say, someone's upset.
Whether that's in your membership or outside, right?
Well, internally, I haven't really gotten much pushback at all. But because again, my members, I think they just want to be represented. They want to go home. They want their families to be safe. Again, they've been so maligned and attacked. And again, I don't think anyone understands what it's like to have, panic alarms in your house because you've been threatened by individuals. We've had, people showing up to our members' houses. I don't think that, my membership wants just a bunch of just real loud narrative that ramps up the energy because again, it's been so personal for them.
Okay.
But, and again, the some of the rhetoric that has come out in the last couple of weeks has been so different and from different angles than we've experienced before, that it's been hard to know the best way to respond. And also, as you know, individual cases, especially when people are saying they want to sue your members or they want to, complain about your members, you can't
go public.
You can't go public and talk about the details of cases. And I do think that the unfortunate reality is, again, there's been a lot of people who have been harmed by the same people we're talking about, by Antifa or by activists or others, who, have developed over years a perspective that, again, I don't begrudge them because they were harmed and they're righteous in their frustration. But also in that world where you have a very deeply held perspective, a lot of times human beings have a tendency to use new information to confirm their priors. And so again, you have an interaction with one of our officers, and if you believe they are a thing and then events unfold, that information will be colored by your perspective. All of the events that have happened in the last couple of weeks, again, you have a lot of new officers, a lot of officers who weren't here in 2020, a lot of officers who have no idea about any of the nuance or who any of these people are. And they're just showing up and doing what they think they should do based on the totality of that individual event. But it then colors this large scale perspective. And I don't know that I want to get into a social media fight about whether or not my members are Antifa sycophants, because honestly, it's insulting.
But you've got, and I appreciate those words, but you've got influencers,
Yeah.
journalists who are now painting you guys in a manner that, you've done how many interviews the past 2 weeks?
30.
Yeah, trying to correct the record or just
Yeah.
explain your position. It comes down to, like I said earlier, the nuances of whatever city you're in.
Yeah.
The people you represent are different than
Yeah.
any other city.
Yeah.
Could be somewhat similar, but they're still different.
Yep.
But I think it comes along with, okay, what do you want to accomplish with your role, and how do you properly advocate for your people? And maybe this is a watershed moment where you guys could see maybe the value of getting into the X game, if you will.
Yeah.
We see it.
Yeah.
Right.
A couple people ask me that. I guess, two things can be true at once. Social media it's a huge commitment. I admire the amount of work that you do there. We have staff that works on it. It also, the scope of our day job is huge. I do think though, the one thing I want to just kind of challenge, attacks on law enforcement, broad swath kind of castigation of the men and the women that do the work, whoever does it, it is wrong.
Either left or right.
I don't care who you are. If you castigate an entire environment of people who are willing to put on a uniform and serve a community, anyone in uniform should be concerned about that. Because again, at the end of the day, the men and the women who are doing the work, that's the focus.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are willing, no matter what. And again, we were just destroyed in 2020 by anti-police, just radical perspectives. Violence. We have videos of police officers having firebombs thrown at them, and it is objectively true that what is happening in Portland today is not the same as that. But we haven't had the same level of violence. Also, what is happening in Portland is unacceptable. Having areas of your city shut down, not being able to navigate commerce, and just ultimately having your police state or your police department's ability to engage in its daily functions so impacted is wrong. But again, it has been really, really frustrating for me. Just because, again, the politics of Portland are what they are, the people who are doing the work there, the individual men and women, those families that sacrifice, their loved ones' time and energy and often their lives, to attack the men and women directly, I don't care who the messenger is, it's wrong.
Okay. Fair enough, man. I appreciate that. What are you going to do if the National Guard comes in? What's your messaging going to be from a union perspective?
Yeah. The thing that's so hard right now is ultimately there's a lot of new legal reality that I don't think any of us actually fully know what that footprint looks like. And I found in the last couple of weeks, people want to ask the question, yes or no, do you want them? Do you not?
Get you on record.
Yeah. And again, we're police officers in Portland. We choose to work there. I grew up there. I went to elementary school there. So, we do need to support our community. We want to make sure that any law enforcement efforts, anywhere you work, will be received well. We have to understand and hear clear communication about what any kind of, addition to our law enforcement efforts look like. It's no different than when, it is a lot different, but when you have the state police come in or whatever else, other jurisdictions, they can't just show up and start doing police work because they don't work there. They don't know the rules, laws. They also don't know how the community is going to react. The National Guard is a completely separate conversation.
Were they deployed in 2020
No.
for Portland? See, they were deployed here in Seattle for the Chaz Chop calamity and the surrender of the East Precinct. That was an interesting experience.
Yeah.
I think the National Guard's going to Portland at some point.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Right? You're in a tough spot, dude.
Yeah.
Because I think Seattle will be the next National Guard movement. And then just got wind of our Mayor Bruce Harrell, who is going to put out an executive order for the city and then obviously direction to the cops of the Seattle Police Department of how to interact, how to deal with the National Guard and or the federal officers, specifically around ICE agents. And then obviously the face mask covering. All this stuff is it's very political.
Right.
Right. And so it's a unique challenge to the unions to try to navigate this again.
Right.
It's a calamity.
Yeah, I mean, because look, our police officers literally just show up every day, and again, barring no giant national or local calamity, to use your word, there's a lot of work to do. Right? There's a lot for them to do. We're understaffed. They go call to call to call. The community's begging for more of them, and so just at our baseline, we're at like full peak.
You guys feel as if you need the national help?
No, well, I don't know the real problem right now. What I would love to have, and people got mad at me for saying this the other day, but if we want to solve a problem, we need to identify what the problem is. We can't have ongoing occupation-style protests in front of federal facilities because, again, the federal government has a legal right to do their work. And so if the work they believe they need to do is, separate, you look at the work they need to do and they say, well, this is the profile we need from the Portland Police Bureau, and we can't provide that help. And again, Oregon, it's not a statement of perspective, it's a statement of fact. The state of Oregon has a sanctuary law that prohibits local law enforcement from assisting immigration work.
Same thing here in this state.
It's just a statement of fact. It's not my choice. It's just, that is what it is. And, so if they need us to do things we can't do, then we have to decide how we're going to coexist together. I don't understand why that's controversial.
It's because it's all a lot of Trump derangement syndrome, right? The TDS possibly.
Yeah.
At least that's the way I read it.
I mean, at the end of the day, again, like I try to be as just practical as possible. I don't fully understand what the federal government needs to be successful in the tasks that they're choosing to engage in constitutionally. And without knowing that, it's hard for me to say what we need help for.
Fair enough, man.
But again, our job is to police our city, and we need to be able to go and police our city. Occupation-style protests are completely.
Have your members, the cops that work for the bureau, have they had a situation where they had to back up ICE agents who were in over their head asking for help?
To my knowledge, not yet.
Okay. And so then with that same thing here.
Yeah.
With that understanding, and I believe that case is going to come.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of messaging you could put to your membership in terms of how to handle that? Or are you relying on the executive, meaning your mayor and or your police chief, to provide at least a policy or a statement and or talking points, orders, I should say?
Yeah.
Are you relying on them first?
No, we speak internally quite a bit. And I will say, as a statement of full fact, our chief has said publicly and internally, if any law enforcement officer in our jurisdiction asks for cover, we will go and cover them. There is no prohibition on that. There's a big difference between, again, I'm sure that there are people within the city that know, but I don't know what work ICE is doing on a daily basis. They don't communicate with me. But if they get on our radio and say, and look, there's other federal officers. We had a postal inspector doing a pursuit a couple weeks ago, and he called for cover, and no one even knew who he was. But we're like, okay, he's a law enforcement officer. We'll go cover him. We have agreements with all adjoining districts. Any police officer, any law enforcement officer who's engaging in police work in our city, if they need cover to make the scene safe, we will provide that. That is never
good. Well, I like that messaging, and man, it's that needs to be heard loud and clear. So I think this was a catalyst of what the last 2 weeks have been. Yeah. This is from a Seattle journalist, Katie Daviscord, who's been down in near the ICE facility in Portland for several weeks, and she gets assaulted on September 30th. This is basically what kicked off a lot of the energy you're dealing with as we speak.
All right, so I have this assault suspect. I have the police guy following, so we're going to see if anything happens.
So that's a curious statement. It appears as if these two people, I'm not sure who they are, and then is that one of your members there?
Yeah.
Okay. He's by himself. Right? So you're understaffed. If he were to take action against one of these people, if not both, who allegedly assaulted this journalist, what would happen to him if he were to take enforcement action? Because I would imagine if he tries to detain them physically, the fight's going to be on.
Right. And again, so if you paint the environment, there are still these two, but also a lot of other people in black bloc gear
Following.
in the area around following. And so this individual officer, you can see him reach up to his radio. He asks, and his sergeant also asked if there was any other cover available. And the answer was no.
Cover meaning
Other
resources other
coming.
officers to help.
Yep. There were no assets available at all. There was no central cars. They're in central precinct. The nearest precinct is north. So there was a discussion about whether or not maybe someone from north could come. It's probably a 20-minute drive. It's not close. And so he, in this moment, has to make a decision. Do I go hands-on and potentially start a fight with two people where at best there's two other people who are doing this liaison program, and start potentially a flashpoint knowing that there's no cover and they can't get out of there? And we have had police officers in Portland disciplined for taking independent action in protest environments. There's a really good case in point from 2020 where the DOJ actually took a significant interest and wanted to suspend one of my officers for arresting somebody using pepper spray who tried to punch him in the back of the head twice because he moved away from the officers about a half a block to go and detain someone who tried to punch him.
So something similar. This is an assault suspect,
Yep.
right? He's trying to intervene.
Right.
You've got the journalist who's been assaulted.
Absolutely assaulted. She's a victim of a felony crime, and the person who did it should be arrested.
Yeah, that's a great statement. I support that statement for sure. And so what you've described here is basically a really difficult situation for this cop.
Yep.
I mean, I think one could argue without the nuanced take you just had, well, he's a cop. He should just go
Sure.
arrest them.
And I would love to live. I would love to live in that world, right? Where again, officers aren't having to make a million decisions at once. And again, we're inserting politics. We're inserting, in this case, tactics, time, ability to be successful. Policy. Again, we have a DOJ agreement. We have rules and laws within Oregon. And ultimately, in a vacuum, I know this officer. He's incredibly capable. And could he physically probably detain both of those people? Probably. But if he creates a flashpoint, we have a problem, and it's dangerous for them. It's dangerous for the people around them. It's dangerous for the responding officers. And so again, I understand the frustration fully. Miss Davis Court, again, is reasonably frustrated that she was assaulted and the person has not yet been apprehended. This isn't easy. But this officer in this environment, in this moment, did exactly what the police bureau has directed him to do.
Okay. That's great context, man. And I think that goes into the lines of having a platform, explaining this to try to tamp down a lot of the energy. I think this was the start of at least painting the picture that you guys are sympathetic sycophants to Antifa.
Yep.
Okay. Well, is this suspect been identified?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. And then you go to this viral video of an incident that occurred, another assault, and I'm using that in quotes.
Yep.
What appears to be, it's a minute clip. We'll let it play. This is journalist Nick Sorter, which was really post Katie Davis Court's assault, was like the topping to really uncover just a launch of media focus here.
Get out of here, white boy. I'm walking down the street. You ain't going nowhere. Get out of here. I'll fuck your ass up. I will fuck your ass up, punk. Get out of here. Get out of here now. You're gonna get fucking paid. Don't fucking touch me. Get it, bitch.
So this piece really was the catalyst to all this energy, the focus on you guys.
Right.
And I think you're left holding the bag.
Yeah.
Where you're having to go public now in media to defend your members. But obviously, you've become the de facto police chief, if you will, in terms of getting out there, explaining things, which puts you in a bad spot.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's also difficult from the standpoint, again, I respect, two things. What you just saw is actually one of my greater frustrations as far as, in 2020, everyone that was like a black blocker who was attacking they all started wearing press stuff, right? Because they were like, because there was a court ruling that said that people could not be arrested if they were engaging in press activities.
So they use it now.
Right. And then they would also engage in open violence. But peculiarly, they're fine assaulting people who have any other perspective other than their own. And so we have, if anyone comes down to stream or video that aren't in their group, they'll just surround them. There's been another.
Which we just saw.
Right. We've had
It's a dangerous environment.
But again, I mean,
Andy No is another.
Yep. Andy No.
Brought him up earlier.
There's a
where
gal,
he was literally assaulted.
Katie has been assaulted multiple times. There's a gal named Shelly as well. And we have all these videos and they, people know who they are. They seek them out. There's another video with a guy in someone's face who was just videoing saying, "I'll kill you." Again, it's important for our community to understand that, again, this is not about freedom of speech. This is about violence. It's also incredibly difficult to police, right? Because you have fights break out. The community or people nationally are criticizing us not making arrests. And so you get to this event, we learn about a disturbance that breaks out. Maybe all the variables, aren't clear because we don't have all the video. The police see portions of it, but see some people engaging in violence. And the way this works is police identify probable cause to believe that people are engaging in disorderly conduct, which is just a fight. Again, they don't have all the evidence. They have the 51% probable cause to believe that this group is engaging in violence. It's hard to do a full, throated investigation in these types of events. Sure. The DA that we had in 2020, openly said that he wouldn't prosecute people for engaging in violence. The DA we have now has been far more thoughtful. And so the officers identify people who are engaging in what they believe to be a fight. They ask the incident commander if they want to make an arrest because the incident commander in our ICS structure has to approve police action.
Really?
Unless there's overt violence, right? But if it's a thing like this, because you're making a tactical decision around low-level crime for the purpose of crowd management.
Okay, so given how many people are near this incident, the cops need cover policy-wise for somebody above who probably is not on scene but listening on the radio. Do we have authority to go arrest somebody?
Right. And so, and we're not talking about...
That's kind of bizarre, but I can see why policy, given all you're dealing with, is written in the manner which it's written and then played out on the street.
And it's not that we don't so every time there is within the ICS, we're documenting when criminal behavior occurs. We're documenting where it occurs, the people that are doing it. And then that information is then given to the people on the ground to take action when appropriate. Again, but out of the DOJ, out of an independent review that was done in the Portland Police Bureau from 2020, there's these conversations about when to engage because there's a de-escalatory nature to the way that we do this work now.
Very similar to Seattle.
Right. So in this case, the decision was made, the officers that again, gather the information that there are, my understanding was 3 people. I understand now that there may have been 4. I, again, don't know, but there were 3 people who were identified as having been involved in this fight.
One of them, Nick identified as potentially this person.
Yeah. That's my understanding is there's another assailant that he is now identifying. So based on what the officers observed, there were 3 people, none of which were known to the officers involved. I think that's important. Mm-hmm. I understand that Mr. Sorter has a very large following. My understanding is the officers had no idea who he or any of the other people were.
Sure.
Not that, again, if you're involved in a fight, we shouldn't be choosing who we're going to arrest, but nonetheless.
Well, policing, like you said earlier, should be apolitical.
Right.
Right?
Right.
When we're doing our jobs.
Right. So the officers, again, say to command, there's a fight, there's these 3 people. They're like, okay, let's go ahead and send in a bike team, go arrest all 3 of them. All 3 people were arrested. They were taken to jail, all on the same charges. And then ultimately the DA dismissed Mr. Sorter's charges after a full review of all of the evidence.
Yeah. And here's a letter right here that we're pulling up from Civil Rights Division in terms of United States versus, I believe that's indicative of what you're describing. But ultimately, here's a picture of Nick getting arrested by the bike team that you're talking about. But we'll link in the description. I can't pull it up right now for some reason, but basically the Portland DA declined charges against Nick.
Yes.
Have they charged anyone else that was arrested that night?
Yes.
The 3 that you described.
The other 2 that, so there
the
was
Antifa people.
The other 2, people who were in Black Bloc that were following him, that were involved in that struggle. Again, I don't know about the other 4th person. I've not been involved in the investigation. I don't know.
But at least 2 have been charged.
The other 2 people were charged, and those charges, again, so Mr. Sorter's charges were dropped, and the other 2 people's charges are continuing.
Okay, so that necessarily wasn't delineated at the time of this arrest in terms of, it was really highlighted that Nick was arrested.
Right.
But I did not know that there were other 2 assailants arrested, and they have been charged.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic news.
Yeah. I mean, and this is, again, in these environments, the thing that is so difficult is the police have to make very quick decisions about how to intervene. Sometimes, again, you look at what you know, you make an arrest based on probable cause, which is 51%. And then, again, if the justice system is functioning properly, which with our current DA it is, you then do a full review. You're able to look at all the evidence without all of the chaos going on, and then make charging decisions. And that's the justice system functioning. I fully understand why Mr. Sorter is frustrated. Being arrested is never good. And ultimately, based on the video, I think the correct decision was made to drop those charges. But also, it is just factually incorrect that the officers arrested him because he was a conservative, or that they arrested him because of viewpoint discrimination, or that they even knew who he was. They transmuted the probable cause to the IC, who ordered the bike squad to make an arrest based on the fact that they saw a fight. They saw enough of it that they believed that they saw kind of a mutual combat disorderly situation, and their hope was to lower the temperature in the environment.
Okay, and then here is the Harmeet Dillon from the U.S. Attorney's Office commenting on what appears to be what we talked about of journalists from the right side being targeted, not only violently from Antifa, but also what appears to be, based upon their comments, maybe unequal enforcement of the law.
You just announced the official civil rights investigation into the Portland Police Bureau. What can you tell us about your investigation thus far?
Well, thank you for having me today. And this is indeed the type of rapid response that Americans have gotten used to from our Department of Justice under Pam Bondi. She called me this morning about this. I'd already been following the case, and within a couple of hours, we'd opened up our investigation. So here's the background. The Portland Police Department has absolutely failed to protect the people of Portland going back well over a decade. They've been in the crosshairs of the United States Department of Justice dating back to 2010. A federal consent decree was actually issued against Portland's police department in 2012. They tried to delay it up by a couple of years, but it went into effect 11 years ago in 2014. Since that time, as we've all seen on the television, there have been numerous riots with Antifa over the last 5 years. And while Portland was temporarily sort of in the about to get out of the consent decree phase, because of its failure to properly arrest people, document what was happening on the streets, keep people safe, they haven't gotten out from under the consent decree. So what we're doing today is actually under the purview of an existing federal consent decree over bad police practices. And we issued a very detailed letter this morning demanding to know why a journalist was arrested, why a second journalist, Katie Daviscourt, who was viciously assaulted earlier this week, where the police had the assailants temporarily in custody and let them go and did nothing about it. Why does it seem like the Portland police are actually working for Antifa as opposed to the people of Portland?
So that's a tough throwdown.
Yeah.
Wow. I think it goes in the lines of just another narrative, conversation, getting the message out there to correct the record, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, it is what is so difficult in this circumstance. A lot, if not all, of our response to crowd management right now is as a result of our consent decree being extended into crowd response. There was a lot of criticism from the Department of Justice in 2021. There was an independent investigation ordered by the Department of Justice into the Portland Police Bureau. And so, the two major pieces that have changed in the Portland Police Bureau as it relates to how we respond to crowds is the DOJ and then state law. There was a slate of bills that came out of the 2021 session, one of which, and most importantly, was the change of our interfering with the police officer law, which basically, within a crowd control environment, you order someone to do something and they don't do it, like move, you can arrest them. We can no longer do that. That was 850 arrests in 2020.
Wow.
And so, it's a very challenging reality that, again, you can look at this one of two ways. These two events that happened, again, I think there's a lot of nuance and details that occurred that are important. And also it's hard in real time. I don't, really want to get into a fight with the DOJ about, all the details via, social media.
So you're doing some work behind the scenes to try to unpack this, right?
Yeah. And, I think ultimately it's really, really important. And I actually met with General Dillon in DC last week. We had a good conversation. I think, we share an interest to ensure that, our officers have the resources that we need to be successful. And we've just got to, again, these consent decrees, you just got out of yours. They're incredibly expensive. They destroy law enforcement agencies.
Morale.
They destroy morale. Again, you have, a lot of outside, and again, when you go from administration to administration, the values change, the perspectives change, the lawyers change. And so, the fact that these consent decrees have been damaging to law enforcement agencies is a statement of fact, regardless of what direction it goes.
That you nailed it. And that's what we're trying to do with UCOPS is try to lead the way with the reform of the consent decrees, because we actually support civil rights investigations because we're professional police officers. Right. So we're working with Harmeet's office to try to unpack that and actually reform it. But I think this is more of the line of narrative control and trying to get ahead of this, which is a deeply, could be a problem. But now you've got the focus is on Antifa now being a domestic terrorist organization as declared by the executive order of President Trump. And then potentially Antifa's ties to funding people that actually have unlimited resources to fund these types of events. And here's Harmeet Dillon talking about Antifa and the funding behind the organization.
The first case that we took on was the case of Andy Ngo, the journalist in Portland, Oregon, and he was exposing the Antifa violence happening in that city. Andy was attacked on 2 different instances by gangs of these Antifa thugs for doing journalism. They recognized him, they violently attacked him, and when I saw him assaulted, I reached out to him, so we're gonna go after them and sue them for attacking you. But we wanted to send the message that it wasn't going to be free to just attack journalists in the United States. Poor Andy was, beaten twice and suffered significantly from that. Each of them showed up in court after I sued them with their own lawyers paid for by Soros-funded, Tides Foundation-funded nonprofits. And so there's a whole edifice of nonprofits on the left that pays for these violent thugs to do what they do with impunity.
That's essentially what the issue is.
Yeah, and it's not even just that. The other thing that came out of 2020 was bail funds. We had, hundreds of thousands of dollars showing up with no real receipts. And in Portland, we had very tragically a domestic violence suspect bailed out of jail and then went home and killed his wife. And in that case, even our DA at the time was like, you can't let this guy out. It's a very high likelihood of reoffense. And so, it is, these investigations are important. We need to understand who's doing what. And again, what's been really peculiar to me is the willingness of people, if something political happens or we have a moment, we stop being objective about the things we see right in front of our eyes. It's
more emotion based.
Yeah. And as an example, the idea that Antifa and that this kind of these cells aren't connected. Just a month ago in Oregon, we had a group on just open source social media discussing the fact that they were going to go down to Eugene and engage in violence at the ICE facility. And they then did and were arrested in Eugene. And so, it's not a mystery. They're openly saying what they're going to do. And frankly, there'll be flyers on social media and just around neighborhoods saying, direct action event here. and then they go and they engage in criminal behavior. This isn't new. And so,
but I think what is new is that Antifa has been designated as a terrorist organization.
Right.
Now, international one that I think has profound impacts to the way we conduct our jobs, and hopefully we can unpack the funding that really is the far left's foot soldiers.
Yeah, and what I meant when I said it's not new, what I'm communicating is that this is settled science, and it's dangerous to me that we keep having to go back to this well and reinvigorate the conversation. I'm glad that most people, even many people I speak to in Portland who are on the left, who are like, yeah, no, we're not gonna pretend that they're not real. And I just think it's important.
Yeah, in terms of them saying that it's not a real entity. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
that seems to be at least the knee-jerk narrative control of not acknowledging that Antifa is real. Well, it is real.
Yeah.
Right? I think that executive order is fantastic.
Yeah.
Really tags them as the people that they are. They're criminals. They are domestic terrorists, and they've been plaguing our cities for decades.
Yes.
And they are the foot soldiers of people that are unreasonable.
Yeah.
If you were to look back on these past 2 weeks and the experience you've had, what would you do different?
I think that the biggest challenge for me, I did not anticipate the breadth of the exposure that we had, and that sounds silly, but the bottom line is we had not had a kind of reinvigoration of crowd response until this, and so I definitely think finding ways to communicate in real time about what we're seeing, and also what limitations officers have. I think looking back, I think it is definitely true. As we navigated over the last couple of years, we probably could have explained better the impact.
Who's we?
The police association. I mean, it's my job,
okay.
Right?
That's good, man. You're owning some stuff.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I think, trying to explain to the public what to expect about how we can respond to things in response to laws. I mean, I run ORCOPS as well,
which is the statewide group.
And the big thing there is we had a meeting yesterday. Anything that's happening in Portland can happen anywhere in the state. We're all impacted by laws that have passed. And frankly, I've spoken to a lot of people who are like, oh, I didn't know we did that. And particularly the interfering with a police officer. It's a huge barrier, right? Like not being able to put handcuffs on people who in an environment where there's a lot of chaos, if you're like, hey, move here, and we legally do not have the authority to put them in handcuffs.
Not much you can do.
It's 850 arrests over a 6-month period is a lot. Right. And you imagine in an environment like this, where there's a couple hundred people, if you can remove 20 who are engaging in violence, or again, even before they engage in violence, they're just not following direction. That would be very helpful. So again, I'm not somebody who thinks I know everything or do everything right. You and I both know our jobs are difficult, and you're confronted with a lot of differing perspectives all the time. I did not anticipate rapid just attacks from all corners around the work that the individuals were doing.
Meaning the cops?
Yeah. Mostly because we've not, I guess I did not recognize how thin the veil of trust from some people is in the work that we're doing.
On both sides?
Yeah. And I mean, the truth of the matter is right now, the response we've gotten from Portland citizens is actually very positive. And that is, again, it's a challenging navigate, because I appreciate that support. I understand, again, I think we've done a lot of conversation internally and locally around what to expect from law enforcement. I think getting that information out is important. Understanding what to expect. I mean, that's kind of a tenet of law enforcement. Legitimacy is bound out of people understanding what to expect from what you're doing, and then they see it, they understand it, and they don't react to it violently.
Yeah, and I think on top of that too, and you agree or disagree, but the journalists that have been assaulted, Andy No in particular, has been going hard in the paint, exposing these Antifa thugs, these terrorists, for years.
Yeah.
And these Antifa and their ilk are hell-bent on just overturning the United States.
Yes.
And they seem to be the only journalists with courage to go into the hard areas to expose these domestic terrorists. And their criticism is that I have no support.
Yep.
And then given the lack of support hindered by policies, without some type of narrative, a counter narrative to, they're highlighting that fact that there's been no police support is problematic.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, the one thing that is difficult to me, and again, you're asking what I would do better, or what I could do better. I also think, I'm not hard to get a hold of.
Fair point.
If people have questions or if we are going to, again, support the rule of law, we're going to support law enforcement. As I said earlier, if we're coming into the environment believing that there is some kind of sycophancy or some kind of whatever, then that explains why we don't reach out to people, explains why we might not have those conversations. But also, I am somebody who is a deep supporter of law enforcement. I grew up, my dad was a cop, got hired when I was 4 months old. I'm involved in honor guard. I've been to every police week for the last 15 years. I support cops. And so if I see something I don't understand, I'm going to reach out to the cops and say, hey man, can you help me understand what happened here?
Sure.
And again, that's my reflex. A lot of people say they support cops, but our officers in Portland are no different than everywhere else in the country, and that they're doing a difficult job and they're under varying levels of assault all the time. And so I do, the thing that I did not expect here is some of the reflexive distrust of law enforcement from people who I think otherwise would be suspected to support law enforcement.
A lot of that's probably generated around working in a blue city that has historically not been very friendly to cops.
Right.
And our jobs is to navigate, trying to get contracts, get our people paid, navigate those waters, and also appease the membership and then appease citizen journalists who are trying to expose the violence that is put on the system, the public safety conversation. Because it is political.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it kind of, it reminds me of the body camera conversation. Everyone wanted us to have body cameras, and then they start watching the footage, and you see a lot of people who are very anti-police who are like, I don't think we should have body cameras.
Yeah, because it shows us 99% of the time doing great work.
Right, and that was amusing to me to watch. I also, during the body camera conversation, they flipped it and were saying that the PPA, that our union was against body cameras. And like, we've literally been asking for them for 12 years.
Yeah.
It is an indication again that people don't necessarily want to see what's happening. They want to be told what's happening, because that way it kind of confirms their perspective. Similarly, with all the civilian journalism, again, there's a lot of streaming that goes on, but during 2020, we had a restraining order from a judge that disallowed the Portland Police Bureau to just simply live feed what we're seeing. And again,
like an intelligence ordinance.
Right.
They don't want you using the footage
right.
In an enforcement capacity.
Right. And so what we were trying to do was not record it, but just stream it. Right. And then you actually saw Channel 2 actually just did this in Portland. But I'm like, the reason that people don't want to show what's going on is they don't want to be caught doing what they're doing.
Sure. And then they don't want to be exposed as the reality that's happening in their city.
Right.
Which is a problem optics wise.
Yeah. And, and also, again, you look at people who were engaging in very violent behavior, again, all put on press stuff in 2020 because of a TRO from a judge, from a restraining order from a judge that said that we couldn't arrest people who were press. So they would put on press stuff and then they would engage in violence. But then they go and engage in violence on people who are there to actually legitimately do journalism.
Totally get it. And I got a lot of respect for these civilian journalists. Andy No particularly, he's been great. He's been on this podcast before. The guy crushes it. And then I got a lot of respect for Nick Sorter and Katie Davis Gord and Jonathan Cho, who are going down there, and then Cam Higbee. These people are courageous, exposing the Antifa domestic terrorists, their actions. And I think what we're dealing with, and just kind of in closing here, that this is an information war.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think your experience the past 2 weeks is illustrative of what you're dealing with. And it's up to unions and associations like me and you and our groups that are around the nation. We have a platform.
Right.
Where you can correct the record, especially if your cops are being maligned in the manner in which they have being targeted. You have that ability. Maybe this is an opportunity for you guys to say, no, this is how it is.
Yep.
You can do that with balancing the politics too. It's very difficult. Yeah, people say, well, how much of a platform does your podcast reach? Well, we put it out there.
Right.
So we can always show it.
Right.
we don't, in terms of us, we don't really necessarily engage local media as much anymore.
Right.
Because they're not being very friendly. They don't really show the true narrative that's happening. Or we have the ability to really provide context to narratives in certain aspects, given the legal nuances. You know, you've been asked some tough questions by Civil Rights Division, these civilian reporters, the journalists there. You've been asked some tough questions. The fact that you're here shows courage and leadership. You're in a tough spot. I would just say keep going hard in the narrative piece. You'll still get a contract if you continue to do that. Screw these Antifa thugs. Yeah. Anything in closing, buddy?
No, I think we talk internally a lot. We need a massive truth-telling organization, an organism to grow. Law enforcement is in a very interesting world because, again, our officers are out there. They're seeing the world as it is, not as people want it to be. They unvarnished get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I do think we're in a moment where law enforcement can't be pulled apart by the poles of all these different issues. Like, we've got to stick together. You know, we've got to understand that if that call comes that someone needs help, we got to go cover each other. You know, we experienced that in 2020. There were adjoining cities where politicians were saying, if Portland calls for help, you can't go.
That's right. So for the audience, ICE agents are in over their heads, getting assaulted. It's going to be up to the local cops to go help them.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a politically divisive narrative from the media perspective because they want to create the chaos, the division.
The bottom line is if cops call for cover, we go cover them.
We're going.
That's our job.
That's our job. All right, pal. Till next time, if we all can continue to support law enforcement, reach out to Aaron. How do people get in touch with the PBA?
President@ppavigil.org is the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay. What about a website?
I think it's just ppavigil.org.
Okay, perfect. I thought you were giving me your goddamn email address. Any social media handles they should go to?
We do have, we have socials on Facebook. We're looking at X. You're the fifth person in the last week.
Get on X, Aaron.
We have a couple different handles. That one has not been, active. We have, but our Facebook and Instagram are busy. A couple people told me in the last week that I'm talking to boomers. So, apparently we got to adjust our strategy there.
Yeah, man. A lot of our new people are new pups and then we got to get into the narrative game. So you're starting to see the light. Appreciate that. If we can continue to support law enforcement, understand the nuances of each city, and the courage of cops out there, align with people that are reasonable, then we all can continue to hold the line and save this republic. Till next time.